All right, y'all. Just wanted to kind of piggyback off of what I talked about yesterday. When Roe versus Wade was overturned. Well, we knew it was coming, but um, some of the long-term consequences of the Trump presidency. We know the damage that was already caused while he was there. It's going to take decades to repair. But the long-term consequences of him putting 3 Supreme Court justices in, remember these are lifetime appointments, meaning these people will be there until the day they die or the day they retire. And may or may not have Democratic, president or Democratic Congress to appoint in their favor. Some of the things that may be an issue, the eroding of rights, eroding of civil liberties, one of which is the right to vote. The Voting Rights Act was passed in the 60s, and it comes up for renewal every 25 years. And so the last time it was re-signed was 2007, maybe. It was right before Obama took office. I think the next time it's up for renewal is like 2032, somewhere up in there. Just a pin stroke away from possibly not having the right to vote. And hear and talk about with this overturning of Roe versus Wade, that other, things that we thought were decided by the Supreme Court and all of those things, things that were settled and constitutionally protected, may come up later. So that's something to be aware of. That's also something to prepare for as we make our exodus. A lot of people, well, a lot of white folks are leaving the country, but a lot of black folks, we don't really think along those terms about leaving. But we got all kinds of stuff going on. The entire system is designed to not let us win, make it very hard for us to succeed. And even when we do succeed, it's only a fraction of what our white counterparts are able to achieve with greater ease. And so that's one of the things that I talk about in my book, is how we can forge our own way. We'll truly have the opportunity to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, because opportunity actually exists for us, not just the fabled opportunity or the fabled American dream. A lot of black folks have left the country, and this is not a new thing. People think this is a new thing, black folks leaving the country. Black folks have been leaving the country for a long time. You go all the way back, let's just say Sally Hemings. Sally Hemings, she left the country with Thomas Jefferson. Wasn't because he wanted to, but she and her brother were with him in France. They didn't want to come back because they knew that they would be slaves. She agreed to come back, if kids could be free and all of that good stuff. World War I, World War II, a lot of African Americans stayed in Europe. Same thing with Vietnam, Korea. A lot of black folks stayed over there after the war. They just didn't want to come back home. When you think of famous folks, Quincy Jones, Josephine Baker, Tina Turner, James Baldwin, quite a few African Americans, past and contemporary, decided to leave and were thriving and are thriving abroad back then, and even more so today. Racism does exist. It exists everywhere. However, just keep in mind that American racism is a very unique style of racism that's seen nowhere else in the world. And the entire foundation of the system was built on it. It was built on that ideology and also on the backs of African Americans. So that's something to think about. Another thing too is that they absolutely need us for this whole game to continue going, right? And if we voluntarily remove ourselves from that, that's something that they'll be forced to deal with. Perhaps that may affect change. That's the intellectual radicalism that I discuss in my book as well. Instead of, marching and, trying to fight a losing battle, start playing chess and outthinking them and thinking of different ways to force change. And one of those things is economic impact, because that's the only thing that they understand. If we remove our bodies, we remove our economic impact, our contribution to the society financially. We're out there, we're not paying mortgages and rents and, car notes and insurance, and we're just not contributing economically to the system, And if enough of us do it, then it's enough to cripple them. We saw what happened when everybody stayed home for the pandemic. Even now, a few months ago, the president was begging people to go back to Main Street because nobody wants to go to, physically go to work anymore. And we've had a taste of freedom and peace, and without the stresses, especially black folks, without the microaggressions, all those things in the workplace. And we don't want to go back. So remote jobs are everywhere now. Some of the companies are getting slick with it. Instead of remote, because they don't want you working out the country. You can't work out the country. They're setting it up for like certain states, so you have to be in this state or that state. Those are work from home jobs. Those aren't remote jobs. A truly remote job allows you the ability to travel. As long as you do your work between the hours of the time zone that you're in, then you should be fine. You have to check your company's policies. Some of them explicitly say that you can't, but it's workarounds. Other folks find workarounds. We ought to be able to find a workaround too. But the problem is that not too many of us are doing it, so now they want to change the rules. Like we talked about yesterday, that's just what they do. As far as the eroding of our freedoms, going back to the Voting Rights Act and other possible things, I'm like this. The minute they elected that dude, Trump, all I saw was us back in the field picking cotton again. I was like, man, I ain't doing that. that was one of my motivations for getting out, because I saw where it was going. It could not, every time he did something worse and worse and worse and worse, and nobody ever stopped him. And so, all of these things that keep happening, and nobody is doing anything. The people aren't taking to the streets. I don't know what it will take in order for people to be mad enough, pissed off enough to say, hey, stop. It's not a Democrat, Republican thing. Congress isn't doing anything. They haven't. They especially the Democrats, they come to the black community every time it's around election time, and they want to get our votes, and they pander to the black churches, and they do and say all the things, kiss babies and hug old ladies, but they don't do anything until they come back and they want your vote again, and whenever their term is up and it's time for re-election. But nothing is happening, and nobody's ever stopped to think, like, why is it that we're so loyal? When I say we, I'm talking about black folks. We are so loyal to the Democratic Party, and they haven't done anything for us in the past 50, 60 years. We haven't really moved forward. And the little gains that we've had, these things are being eroded and stripped away from us. Voter suppression, all of this kind of stuff. Mass incarceration, Nobody bothered to check Biden's record. He has a history of pandering to black folks for their vote. We've always gotten him in office, even when he was in the state legislature in Delaware, right? He loses elections, he turns to the black community, we get him elected, and then crickets until it's time for re-election. What do you think he did this time? Same thing with Kamala Harris. Everybody was all mesmerized with the Chucks and Pearls, Chucks and Pearls. What happened to the campaign promises? We're halfway through their term. And black folks, we ain't seen nothing. We haven't seen anything from anybody, you know? So when you start questioning why are we so loyal to this party? Now, I'm not saying switch to Republicans. Republicans, they don't even wear the hoods anymore. They just, and ironically, though, 150 years ago, 160 years ago, they were polar opposites, literally. Like, the Republicans were left-leaning and the Democrats were right-leaning. That's how, in the 60s, you get Dixiecrat, and the Democratic Dixiecrats. But black folks were loyal because they were the party of Lincoln, as far as the Republicans back in the day. In the early 20th century, there was a flood in the Mississippi Valley, if I'm not mistaken, and basically black folks were, corralled and basically forced camps and slave labor again. And so that's when they started switching. I can't remember which president it was. I want to say maybe Woodrow Wilson. Don't quote me on that. It's one of those presidents from that time, like the 1920, Mississippi Delta flood or something like that, Mississippi River Valley flood. You can Google that and maybe somebody leave it in the comments for me. I don't remember. But that's when African Americans switched over to the Democratic Party, and we've been staunchly loyal ever since. And in my opinion, it's gotten us nowhere. You don't even know why you vote Democratic, do you? You do it. Your grandma voted that way. Your mother. I take that back. Your grandma might have been a Republican, because they were still kind of loyal to the party of Lincoln. Or maybe your great grandma, but your mom and them, your auntie and them, everybody, your generation, 1950s and to the present, more likely than not, were staunch Democrats and voted straight down the Democratic ticket, without even, checking out the person. Your pastor said do it, your mom and them said do it, and that's what you did. And that's one of the things that we should kind of be aware of, is that we're not going to get anywhere with this. With the possibility, we know that the Republicans play dirty. Democrats aren't going to play as dirty, but at the end of the day, they're probably all in bed together. If all this power is had, we have control of the White House. Well, they Democrats, because I'm neither one. The Democrats have control of the White House. The Democrats have control of Congress. And, they kept saying, we can't get anything passed, can't get anything. You have control. I don't understand. And I'm a bit confused on that. So how does Mitch McConnell still have so much power? How is nobody questioning this power? How is nobody saying that, or nobody questioning why he refused to pass any legislation, during, especially the last 4 years of Obama's term, why he refused to do any legislation, Democratic-backed legislation during the Trump years, and now during the Biden time. But anyway, these are all things that we need to consider. Like I said the other day, the United States can't feed its children, feed its babies. Roe versus Wade being overturned. You're forcing people who either don't want to, for whatever reason, it's their decision, it's their choice, it's their body. But, these kids, if they're forced to come into this world, be it, rape, incest, or, somebody got caught up slipping, nobody wants to help them take care of them. They're constantly cutting social service programs. These kids end up in just dire circumstances a lot of times. Some of them end up orphans, foster care, going through the system, and just have it overall rough. They don't stand a chance before they even get here. But nobody wants to help them. Which anyway, that's something. Um, Another thing too is that um, when we think about our inflation, the things, people can't afford to live anymore. You know, I was reading something a while ago that I think I want to say it was like in San Francisco, somewhere in California, like $140,000 was considered low income. It used to be in the South, 140, 150,000, man, you were balling. But now, like, a family of four, you surviving. I mean, you can still, have everything you need and most of the stuff you want, but you've got to stretch that dollar a little bit further. And it's getting hard out there for people. Young adults don't really have a chance coming out of college and trying to find a job and all this other stuff. And the companies want to lowball you, and, so. And that's why remote work is important, because it can open up doors for people to kind of move abroad. Because one of the things about living abroad is that you don't need as much to survive. And this was, this whole study, this was before inflation, this whole study after inflation. Like I said yesterday, me living in Mexico, inflation has started to hit here. Like I saw a bag of shrimp. Like normally the shrimp was 184 pesos for like a bag of peeled to vein jumbo shrimp. Maybe about a month or so ago, that same bag of shrimp it went up 10 pesos to like 194 pesos. So which is roughly about just under $10. So like maybe about not 100, so like $9 and some change. Give or take some, I'm not the exact amount, but it's close enough. So, yeah, that's one of the things. So you need less money to live abroad. You are able to do more. It kind of stretches a little bit more abroad. So just, keep an open mind. I feel like something is crawling on me. I don't know, I got the heebie-jeebies or what. All right. Anywho, that happens sometimes. My allergies, man, that Saharan dust has me itching and sneezing and running and all of that good stuff. All right. That just about does it for today. I am Jay Freedom. I'm sorry, I should have done this earlier. I'm the author of We Out, How to End Our Abusive Relationship with America. I provide a blueprint on how to get your game plan together so you can quickly amass the money that you need to make your move. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor. Consult your financial advisor. Make the decisions that you need to make for you and your family to make sure that you're safe and to make sure that you're able to survive what's coming, what's here. It's not coming. I've been, waving the red flag for a few years now. Me being a historian, I use, I guess, my knowledge of history to kind of keep me and mine ahead of the game, and I'll, yell it from the mountaintop and tell whoever wants to listen to help get them out so they can live and thrive abroad and, live their best lives. It's not for everybody. I do understand that. It's not for everybody, but if you keep an open mind, if you are willing to learn a new language, if you are willing to learn a new culture, to embrace a new culture and be embraced by that culture, usually the people of these foreign lands to us, they welcome us with open arms. We don't have to worry about police brutality. We don't have to worry about just being bothered with Karens in the store. We don't have to worry about Kens running around and these crazy people with their guns and their mass shootings and all of those things. We don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. That problem, mass shootings, that's a uniquely American problem. You don't have that anywhere else in the world. And so just keep in mind. Anyway, book is available, Amazon, We Out, Jay Freedom, and it's available paperback, audiobook, and ebook. Just leave your comments. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification so you're notified I've had this channel for a little while, but I'm actually getting ready to start actually, like, using it frequently because I haven't really been, on it. I've been going through some things, and so I've been trying to, I kind of got exhausted trying to, help as many people get out, and I had a little burnout and just needed to take a little time. But I think now is the time. Now is the time for the call for Exodus. We need to get the word out. I see a lot of celebrities are doing it as well. So a lot of folks are getting those second passports. They are setting up residency in other countries. They are scoping it, doing their research. They are buying land. They are traveling, trying to find their new home. So this is a thing now, and I think it's finally time for the call for Exodus. It's time, y'all. We out. All right. Until next time, y'all have a great Saturday.